This is your 27th. This is your Not So News update. Yesterday, we talked about the 3 questions that need to be answered for Trump's impeachment. These were 1, can a former president be impeached? 2, does the Chief Justice need to preside over Trump's impeachment? And 3, does Trump's statements make it so that he should be held for treason or high crimes and misdemeanors? Today, we're breaking down a couple of these questions as we have updates in the last day. So, can a former president be impeached? This led me to a couple questions. First, would they still be impeaching Trump if he hypothetically already served 2 terms? This way he wouldn't be able to run in 2024. It seems that you would need to be willing to say yes to this to be able to impeach a president that's already been out of office. This question has been brought up by Senator Rand Paul on the first day of them talking about the impeachment trials. The following statements were reported by Rand Paul from Kentucky.com. Private citizens don't get impeached. Impeachment is for removal from office, and the accused here has already left office, Paul said. If the framers intended impeachment to merely be a vehicle to remove sitting officials from the office, they would not have included that additional provision, disqualification from future office, Schumer said. This is really the debate that's going on, is like the purpose of impeachment for taking them out of office currently, or for allowing them from future office. Let's just look at the relevant parts of the Constitution to this. Here we're looking at Article 1, Section 3. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. When sitting for that purpose, they shall be on oath or affirmation. When the President of the United States is tried, the Chief Justice shall preside, and no person shall be convicted without the concurrence of 2/3 of the members present. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. But the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to the law. So, it does seem like there's a legitimate argument on both sides here for whether the purpose is to take a current president out and make it so they can't hold office in the future, or whether there can be a pure impeachment on holding future office. The real issue here is that voters in polls, when people vote, would be able to make that future judgment of holding office in the future. I think the other issue Democrats are going to run in here, if they take a very literalist approach to this statement, is if we're holding Trump to the standard of being president for these trials, is in the Chief Justice clause. When President of the United States is tried, the Chief Justice shall preside. It seems like we really need to pick whether we're holding Trump to the standard of being president or not when it comes to this impeachment. So earlier this week, we have essentially the start of the impeachment trials. So before the vote, this is from AP News. Before the vote, senators officially opened the trial by taking oaths to ensure impartial justice as jurors. The 9 House Democrats prosecuting the case against Trump carried the sole impeachment charge across the Capitol on Monday evening in a solemn and ceremonial march across the same halls the rioters ransacked 3 weeks ago. The lead House prosecutor, Representative Jamie Raskin of Maryland, stood before the Senate to describe the violent events on January 6th and read the House resolution charging high crimes and misdemeanor. This gives us the one answer to the third question, which is what were Trump's crimes? So it seems like there were 2 routes that they could have gone, is the potentially looking at his language being treason, or what they're going for here, which is high crimes and misdemeanors. The real issue that I think that Republicans are going to use against the Democrats in this prosecution is that they need to be able to prove that the language used by by Trump and his administration would not be protected by the First Amendment, because they're saying that is now a crime or misdemeanor. So Vox then reports the following on Rand Paul's remarks. Senator Rand Paul used a vote on Tuesday to highlight Republican dissent on impeachment and to argue there isn't sufficient GOP support to convict the former President Trump in his upcoming Senate trial. Shortly after senators were sworn in for that trial, Paul requested a vote on the constitutionality for impeaching a former president, something multiple GOP lawmakers have questioned. His motion was quickly tabled, but the vote to dismiss it is still revealing. And then Vox says, a majority of legal scholars have concluded that holding an impeachment trial for a former president would be constitutional. However, the precedent for how to handle the impeachment of a former government official is less clear. In 1876, Secretary of War William Belknap faced a Senate trial after he had already resigned, and though a majority voted to proceed with the trial, 2/3 did not vote to convict, with multiple lawmakers citing concerns about the proceedings' constitutionality. Republicans have used the same question of constitutionality and the lack of direct precedent for a former president facing an impeachment trial to cast doubt on the need to hold a trial for Trump, who was charged with inciting the insurrection that took place on the Capitol on January 6th. I think Vox also hit something right on the point here, which is we're now giving Republicans an extra excuse. And, noteworthy it is a constitutionality issue, is that we're allowing Republicans to not just vote on whether Trump's actions were legal or not, but whether the trial itself is constitutional or not. I'm assuming Republicans are using this as a means to hopefully not split up their base. This way they can hopefully hold both the traditional Republicans and their Trump bases. Next, CNN remarks on how this will likely affect the upcoming impeachment trial. They go into state, Paul's motion was killed on a 55-45 vote, with 5 Republicans joining all the Democrats, meaning 45 Republicans voted for Paul's effort. Republican Senators Mitt Romney of Utah, Ben Sasse of Nebraska, Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania crossed party lines to vote with Democrats. In order to convict Trump at his trial, at least 17 Republicans will need to vote with all Democrats when the trial begins next month. Significantly, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell sided with Paul in the vote, a potential indicator that he agrees the constitutionality of impeaching a former president is in question. Paul argued after the vote that the fact that 45 Republicans sided with him shows that impeachment is dead on arrival. If you voted that it was unconstitutional, then how in the world would you ever hope to convict somebody for this? Paul asked, adding 45 of us, almost the entire caucus, 95% of the caucus, voted that the whole proceeding was unconstitutional. This is a big victory for us. Democrats can beat this partisan horse as long as they want. This vote indicates it's over. The trial is all over. The real question is, if 55 people voted against Trump, is this a floor or a ceiling? My assumption is this is a ceiling. If someone thinks that the proceeding is unconstitutional, then no amount of evidence would be enough to change that. Potentially, this could be addressed by the House's impeachment managers as part of the impeachment trial, but this just sets an extra question that the impeachment managers need to answer before they will be able to get a Trump prosecution. Finally, Mother Jones explains the significance of those 45 votes, of one of those 45 votes, specifically Mitch McConnell. McConnell's vote in particular may have seemed a surprise. Describing the Capitol insurrection on the Senate floor on January 19th, he stated, the mob would spread lies. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people. The New York Times reported earlier this month that McConnell privately supported impeachment. Still, he has refused to state publicly where he stands on impeachment. Tuesday's vote suggests an uphill climb for the 2/3 majority needed to vote to convict Trump. Even after an attack on the Capitol that left 5 people dead, Republicans seem unlikely as ever to take a stand against Donald Trump. I'm not sure, what the purpose of Mother Jones' article here or that last statement is, other than to keep viewers. But this is the type of journalism that continually attempts to strawman the opponent and not actually look at the merits of a particular case. If they genuinely believe that Trump was responsible for the 5 deaths at the Capitol, then they would be calling for state and local prosecutors to hold Trump responsible. But as far as I know, that has not been done to any extent. This also seems to imply the answer to our third question: was Trump's language impeachable? If a state or local prosecutor is not willing to prosecute Trump for his language, that seems to imply that he did not break any First Amendment speech violations. And at that point, what do we expect the Senate to do? It seems to imply that if a state and local jurisdiction isn't going to hold Trump responsible, and the Senate's saying that the impeachment is unconstitutional, at this point, it seems, like Rand Paul said, that we're just beating a partisan horse at this point. This is your January 27th Not So News update. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and have a good one.